Hi, and thank you for joining. My name is Frankie Hunt, and I am the Regional Manager for Student Recruitment from Europe and the Americas here at the University of Reading. So this is a more general information session about the University of Reading, and also including various input and information from both our Agriculture and International Development departments and also our Environmental Sciences department. So firstly, I just wanted to give you some very general information about the University of Reading, just in case you haven't heard of us before I pass over to my academic colleagues. So the University of Reading is quite an old university. We were originally founded in 1892 as a University of Oxford Extension College. So we've been around for over 125 years, and we actually welcomed our first international student all the way back in 1908 from Kenya, who actually came to us to study agriculture. So I think that facts are quite relevant for this particular talk. We were then awarded our Royal Charter, becoming the University of Reading in 1926. So we do have a lot of history and a long history of welcoming international students here at Reading. So just to give you an idea more general about our rankings, we are in the UK top 30 according to the QS rankings for this year. And you can see actually with the subjects in the UK top 20 that agriculture does feature. We're number 2 in the UK for agriculture. So next, I wanted to give you an idea about the size of the university, and we are quite a large university. We have just over 20,000 students in total, and just under 4,000 of those are international students like yourselves. And these are from about 180 different countries. So generally, if you can think of a nationality, we probably either have or have had someone of that nationality who's been studying at the University of Reading. Our students are also really high achieving. About 80% of our undergraduate students graduate with a first or a 2-1. So that's about a 3 out of 4 GPA. And similarly, just under 80% of our postgraduate students also graduate with very high marks, so a distinction or a merit. So if you don't know where we are in the UK, we're quite close to London. I put 25 minutes here, but I think there's even a very slightly quicker train that will do it in 22 minutes now. But yes, it's very easy to get in and out of the capital if that's something that you would like to do. And because we're so close to London, and we actually have very good transport links as well. So Reading is a rail hub, and you can get all over the country by direct rail, but you can also get to a couple of different international airports quite easily as well. So you can get to London Heathrow International Airport in about 40 minutes from Reading, and you can get to London Gatwick International Airport in about 90 minutes. So we are a commercial centre in what's called the Thames Valley in the UK, which the easiest thing to compare it to probably be Silicon Valley, just because it is very tech focused. So we have the UK headquarters of Microsoft here in Reading. We have the UK headquarters of Oracle, and also big offices of other multinational companies, as you'd expect from that. So for example, Prudential, Huawei, Ericsson, PepsiCo, Virgin Media have a very big centre nearby as well. And there are a lot of other small to medium-sized enterprises and blue chip companies that have sprung up from that association with the larger technology companies. Outside of that, we're also a regional hub for culture, shopping and recreation. We do have one of the biggest music festivals in the UK, probably second only to Glastonbury, that's based here in Reading, which is Reading Festival. That happens in August over the national holidays every year. And we do have quite big names that come to that. So you had this year Post Malone headlined on the Saturday, Liam Gallagher headlined on the Sunday, and Stormzy, who might actually be a little bit well known in the UK, but he headlined on the Friday. So a lot of our students like to go there over the summer and blow off steam. We also have a big shopping centre here called the Oracle, which you can see in that bottom left-hand picture. And as is often important to our agriculture and environmental sciences students, there are a lot of beautiful green open spaces just outside of Reading as well. So lots of very classic English countryside is really easily reachable. We've got 2 different campuses here at the university. We have our main White Knights campus, which is the one on the bottom left-hand side. So that's our brand new library that's pictured there. And this is our Parkland campus, and it's the main campus where you'd be studying. It was originally a country estate, so it's got a lot of very beautiful features. So some old historic buildings. We have a lake on campus. We have a botanical gardens, and we do actually have some vegetable allotments, I believe, that students are able to take part in as well if they'd like to. We also have London Road, which is on the right-hand side there. That's our historic campus. This was the original campus of the university, but it's only about a 20-minute walk away from White Knights. This is mainly used for graduations. We have our Great Hall there that's very grand, and you also might have some examinations there. And if you're interested in music, we have a lot of our music practice rooms based down at London Road as well. So to give you an idea about the scale of the campus, this is about half of it, actually. So this is kind of the main hub of campus. You can see some of the student accommodation in that figure of 8 shape at the front, and also the White Knights Lake on the left-hand side. But the agriculture department is actually over the other side of the lake, and I believe environmental sciences should be actually in this picture. So I've mentioned the library. It's a great time to join us because it has just been refurbished. We spent over £40 million refurbishing that and completed that in 2019. This is open 24 hours a day during the week in term times. If you do have any last minute deadlines that you need to meet, or you want to do some group work with friends, it's a really good place to do so, and it's right in the heart of campus as well. Because we are a campus university, we do have lots of accommodation available for students, and as long as you meet the relevant application deadlines for accommodation, then you will be guaranteed accommodation in the year that you're with us. It's all either on campus or within a 10 or 15-minute walk, and everybody gets their own room, so you don't have to share, but you can choose whether or not you want to share facilities or if you want to have your own ensuite facilities, obviously with the appropriate price points for those. You can also choose whether or not you want to be catered. So you prepay for food, and this money is loaded onto a campus card that you can spend on different catering outlets, or you could be self-catered and cook all your own food. That's entirely up to you. So before I pass over to my academic colleagues to give you a bit more information about our courses that are available, just so you're aware, I've mentioned you're with us for a year briefly there in the accommodation part, but master's programs in the UK are 12 months, so are slightly different to US master's programs in that regard. For the fees for the programs, these will vary slightly depending on what you choose, but they're somewhere between just under £19,000 up to just under £22,000 for that year that you're with us. And due to the relationship that we have with Centre College, you do also qualify for an automatic discount. So as long as you select that you're from Centre College when you make your application, you'll receive an automatic 10% discount off your tuition fees as well, which is always very good news. So now I'm going to pass over to my colleague, Dr. Sarah Cardy, who's the director of our Graduate Institute for International Development, Agriculture and Economics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frankie. So as I said, I'm Dr. Sarah Cardy. I'm the director of our Graduate Institute, which we call GIDE. Can I have the next slide, please? So this gives you a bit of a snapshot of the school. The bottom left-hand corner is the agriculture building where you'll find the school. And these are some of the photos of our students. As you can see, we're a very international and diverse school. Could I have the next slide, please? We have quite a range of facilities in international development and in agriculture and applied economics. So we have crop and environmental labs. We have a range of different specialist research units that are related to agricultural research. So we have a crop research unit on our farm in Sonning. We have the International Cocoa Quarantine. I like to say that means all the chocolate in the world at some point will come through Reading. But it's a specialist research unit that works on cleaning cocoa blight and diseases from different cocoa plants. We have a fruit research collection. We have a fairly substantial farm holding, which has a lot of different types of cows that where we do a lot of research in our center for dairy research. But it means we have our farm is split over 2 different sites. There's specialist facilities on the sites on our farms, but also in our buildings on campus. And we work across a range of different labs. And we have modern lab and lecture facilities in the school, as well as things like student rooms and study resources within the school. Could I have the next slide? We have 5 different departments that sort of focus our teaching and research. We have sustainable land management, crop science, agri-food economics and marketing, international development, and animal science. So we cover a range of different aspects of agriculture, as well as covering applied economics, looking at agricultural economics, food economics, and marketing. And we have a range of international development degrees that covers 6 different focal areas. The staff and students within the school do a lot of work in collaboration with a range of different organizations, so government, private sector, research institutions, NGOs on a global scale. We do work around the world. Next slide. So international development at Reading is very highly ranked. So we are number 1 for agriculture in the UK and 6th in the world for agriculture and forestry. And we're in the top 100 in the world for development studies, environmental science, and geography. So what it means is the research that we're doing is very, very highly ranked. And internationally recognized. So the people that are doing the teaching in the classroom are actively engaged across a range of different kinds of research, and we bring that into the classroom. Our students also tell us from their feedback that they have a consistently very good student experience. And the qualification itself is highly regarded by employers. So people recognize that this is a very strong institution and that having a degree within the school is a strong qualification going forward in the future. Over 90% of the postgrads at Reading go on to employment or further study within 6 months of graduation. Next slide, please. The school itself is very diverse. We are very heavily international. So we're normally 70% of our students are non-UK, that goes up to 80% depending on the year. So this year we have about 50 different countries from around the world. We always have at least 40 different countries, and it's not clustered in any one particular area. So there's a great deal of geographic diversity. It means that we have students who are coming from a range of different backgrounds. Some will be coming directly from undergraduate. Some will be coming having been in the workforce for a little while and are upgrading their learning. Some are switching from another subject matter into development or agriculture or applied economics. So it's a diversity, and we speak to that and teach to that diversity. So in the classroom, we know that peer-to-peer knowledge and peer-to-peer exchange is very valuable. So we aim to have interactive and dynamic classrooms. So students are learning from one another in a real community spirit. We also have a lot of links with our alumni from around the world. Some of those will be invited into the class to give talks, but also things like helping provide support with placements. There are some countries where we have extensive alumni networks who are happy to support our current students and will provide opportunities and, for instance, assist with dissertation research, placements, and help develop career networks. We do have, because we have such a diverse student body, we have a lot of experience with international students and know that it takes adjustment and support to study in the UK. So we have a number of programs that are tailored for our international students. We have, for instance, personal and professional development for international students. There's study and language support. So even if you're still studying in your first language, if English is your first language, know that there can be differences in style between different countries. So we have specialist support that comes into the school to meet with our students to make sure that they can do as well as they possibly can during their studies. And across all of our degrees, we have opportunities for placements. This could be short term within the UK or overseas, or it could be longer term. So I've had students do 1 or 2 weeks placement with different organizations, up to doing 2 months with an organization or a business overseas. So there's a range of different opportunities that we will help to support. Next slide, please. So we have a range of programs in the school that cover international development, applied economics, and agriculture. The degree of the MSc Applied International Development is the degree that I recommend when somebody is interested in development, but is new to the subject or wants to have a broad perspective on international development, there's a lot of room in that degree to tailor it to particular interests. So if I had a student a few years ago who was very interested in cocoa and cocoa manufacturing and development. So she came with a job description. We were able to look at how we could build the specific skills that she needed to get into that sector. We also have some specialist degrees, so agriculture and development. This one covers the intersection of social and natural sciences. So there's social science learning about international development, as well as the more natural science side of experimental agriculture, experimental horticulture, and looking at agricultural development. You can look at irrigation systems. So that one's a blend. The rest of our development degrees look at particular sectors in development more specifically. So environment, food security, communication, and development finance. We do have at the university a very strong emphasis on sustainability and environmental change. So we have our climate change and development degrees degree and our environment and development degree look at those processes of environmental change and sustainability. Our applied economics degrees look at agricultural economics and that one has a pathway in development economics. Food economics and marketing is looking at some of the things that are specific to economics and marketing in relationship to food, be that at the level of marketing or be that policy. Our MSc in consumer behavior is looking at why people make the decisions they do, how can we influence decisions? And then if you're interested in having a more research focus, we have 3 degrees that have a more research orientation. We have MSc by research in agricultural and food economics, our MSc by research in agriculture, ecology, and environment. Both of those have a larger proportion of the degree focused on the dissertation project. So normally students would work on their dissertation during the summer months. Those 2 degrees have more of an emphasis on the research degree, and the MSc by research in agriculture, ecology, and environment starts their research project earlier than the rest of the students. And we have an online MSc in animal science. So this is a research degree looking at issues around animal science with the option of doing some residential period in Reading. Next slide, please. As I said, we aim to have a very interactive classroom and have a variety of learning methods. So it's not all lectures. We have a lot of seminars and tutorials with a lot of emphasis on classroom participation. So debates, discussions, small group work. We use visual problem appraisal, so it's a visual learning tool to help bring research into the classroom. And we have field trips. Some of these are embedded within specific modules, and some of them are across the Graduate Institute, where we take students to a variety of different places. Program directors also will take students on field trips to visit organizations, to events that are of interest to the degree. And the assignments are also quite varied. We're not very heavy on exams. Most of our assignments are coursework based, so essays, reports. Many of our assignments will mirror the kinds of skills that you would need by employers. So you get practice in doing the kinds of skills that you'd be asked to do in the workplace. Next slide, please. There are a lot of learning resources beyond what the university as a whole provides. So our staff and fellow students are a very friendly group of people, and they tend to be really strong resources for learning. Students work together and study together and are often really good sources of information and knowledge with a global perspective. We have across the university, we use the Blackboard system. We have extensive learning resources online. We do all of our submission of assessments online. And there's reading lists, access to additional materials, course information, and lecture notes and videos as well. In the agriculture building, we have a dedicated master's study room. So this is available just for our master's students. And it's a space where they can study. We have lockers for them to put their belongings if they're on campus all day, and is a place for students to meet and to work together. Next slide, please. We also have a range of scholarship opportunities. So on we call them the GIDE International Scholarships, and there is one that is specifically for North American students. It comes in the form of a tuition discount, so it would be £4,000 tuition discount. The scholarships will open by the end of this month, and then are allocated and awarded on a rotating basis. So we aim to make a decision within 3 weeks of application, and will continue to award them until our scholarship fund has run out. We have £300,000 allocated to scholarships this year for our students. Next slide, please. If you want details or more information about any of the degrees and any of the programs, my colleague Robbie Gerling is also with us today, so he can answer any questions about agriculture. And I am happy to answer questions about international development. If you have any specific questions about applied economics and marketing, Robbie and I will do our best, but we can also refer you to our colleague, Giacomo Zanello. I believe that is the last slide for us. Great, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. I'm going to carry on. So my name is Anne Verhoef. I'm based in the Department of Geography and Environmental Science. And I'm the program director of one of our MSc's programs. This is the MSc for Environmental Pollution. Thank you. So first of all, let me start with talking some more about our department. Now, as Sarah said already, you are really in good hands. We are an internationally renowned center of expertise. So we are ranked in the top 10 in the UK for environmental studies, and the university itself is ranked number 4 in the UK for the research power in earth systems and environmental sciences. So, as I said, you will be in good hands. You will be taught by award-winning academics. And when I say award-winning, this is not just large research grants, but we're also talking about prizes that some of my colleagues received for their teaching. So this is, of course, very good news for our students. Now, we also teach very much via hands-on approaches. So lots of practical and field work. So this could be practical work in the lab or in the field using environmental monitoring methods, for example. And while we're teaching those things, we make extensive use of our industrial partners. So many of my colleagues have research projects or other links with industrial partners within the UK, but also on an international level. So what that means for you, of course, excellent employment prospects, because you will be taught all the skills that you need to be working with those kind of partners or other, for example, government bodies. And in fact, 95% of our leavers, they find themselves in work or in another study, let's say a PhD study, within 15 months after the end of their course. Now, we are also very lucky to have a dedicated building. So this is the Russell building, and I'm not there at the moment. As you can probably see, I'm in my bedroom in Oxford. But either way, we have a dedicated building, and we have some great labs, some excellent purpose-built labs where we have extensive equipment, but we also have field stores that are full of field sensors and other tools that you would need to do your research project, for example. Now, what's very high on our list, what's very important, is that we are as welcoming a place as possible. So we do that via our excellent equality and diversity and environment. So this is within our ethos, but also we have special working groups for that who make sure that that we really take care of this, so that anybody from any background or race, gender, and so on feels very welcome. And in fact, a few years ago, we got a special, what we call an Athena Swan award for that. In this case, it was a silver award, so it means we're doing our very best here. Next slide, please. So let me then get on to these courses. So first of all, the MSc Environmental Management course that generally takes the most students compared to the environmental pollution. So generally we have about 15 to 25 students on this course, and these are generally students who really want to study a mix of social science and natural science, and then really with the aim to become environmental managers. So for example, with a focus on policy and regulatory processes. Now we also have students then, these are generally choosing the MSc Environmental Pollution, who are much more interested just on the natural science angle. And then specifically, they want to specialize in contaminated land, air and water, and how to fix these problems. So how to clean up contaminated land, how to measure how polluted certain areas are, how to protect the environment, and how to manage this. We use, so in our teaching, but also for your projects, for your research projects, we will be using case studies from all over the world to demonstrate the applicability of the course content to very pressing global environmental issues such as climate change, for example. Next slide, please. Now, let me now talk you through the setup of our course. So as Frankie pointed out, we have 1-year courses, and within those courses, we have 180 credits, and 1 credit would be about 10 hours of work, and that can be work, so you being taught, or you being in a lab or in the field, or working on your own, or with other people, perhaps within small study groups. Now we have those 180 credits split up over 120 credits core taught modules, and I'm talking here now about the environmental pollution course. So 120 credits are core taught, and then 60 credits are in the research project. And here in red, in the big box at the bottom, you see some examples. So we will be teaching you generally about the pollutant behavior in the environment, so with a big focus on the flow of water in soils and the pollutants that flow with that. We also be teaching you about environmental and pollution microbiology and urban air quality. Very importantly, we look at waste and environmental management. Environmental consultancy is a very important module, and I will be talking a little bit more about that in one of my next slides. And then there will be dedicated laboratory classes that will teach you how to analyze soils and pollutants. There will also be a module that looks at the quantitative analysis of environmental data, because you will be dealing with a lot of data. So how to analyze those statistically, for example. There's the field class, I will be getting back to that. And then an overarching module that teaches you all the skills that you need to be a successful student. So these are really transferable skills, but also learning skills, how to learn best, how to make the most of your studies. Next slide, please. Now, the environmental management course also has 180 credits. We have 60 credits of core taught modules, but also now you have the opportunity to choose modules. So we have optional taught modules, and then again a 60 credits research project. So if we move on Yes, thank you. And now these core taught modules, you will see some of the modules I already mentioned. At the bottom, you see the skills for independent learning, and you will see in the middle the waste and environmental management. But we will now also, for this particular course, we have more socio-economic modules that we draw upon from other schools. And I should mention also that this course is co-administered with the school that Sarah Cardy is in. And we will also draw from not just from that school, not just from SAPD, but also from other departments and schools across the campus. So yeah, we have environmental management principles and then economics. And then, yes, if you move on to what's coming next. Yes. Now we have some recommended modules. So what we highly recommend are the quantitative or the qualitative research methods. So it really depends on what the environmental management student is actually planning to do for their research project. If they're thinking about doing questionnaires, perhaps doing a more socially based topic, then we would recommend the qualitative research methods. But if you're going to look at hard environmental data, we say take the quantitative methods. There's also the opportunity to do a research and enterprise microplacement where you will be placed within a company for a short period of time where you can really experience what it feels like to work for a company or an institute, for example. So we also highly recommend that. And then finally, we highly recommend the field class. And again, I've got a dedicated slide for that. So if we can move on. Yes, now very different from the environmental pollution courses. It's, as I said, here you have more choice, and we give some pointers here. There's some strands, some streams that people generally focus on, but you don't have to. You can say, I'm going to pick a mix, but let me talk you through these streams. So we have the contaminated and urban environment stream, where you would be looking similarly to the environmental pollution students, maybe at urban air quality, urban ecology, lab skills, and so on. Now, if you're more interested perhaps in the changing environment, so climate change and what that means for managing the environment or carbon sequestration and these kind of issues, then this is your kind of stream. But some others are more interested in agriculture and especially the feeding our planet kind of issues. So then the agriculture and rural and environment stream would be more suitable. But as I said, you can pick a mix, so there's nothing set in stone here. And then finally, yes, you have also your research project. So if we move on to the next slide. Thank you. So let's talk you now through this research project a bit more. You see some nice photos here. So first of all, you have access to research equipment. So this can be in the lab, as you see on the right. But as I said earlier on, we also have a field store and dedicated electronic labs where you can, for example, set up a data logger to monitor, to measure soil moisture content in, let's say, any wetland or whatever you have in mind. Here you see some students installing equipment to measure groundwater levels. Now on the right, you see a student in the lab. He's working there with bottles and chemicals, but we also have, of course, equipment where you would put small samples and measure things that way in a more mechanized fashion. Across campus, there are other places where you could do your research. For example, on the bottom left, you see one of the greenhouses, or we also have growth chambers, so very versatile. And then you can also choose to collaborate with industrial partners, so that would make for a very interesting and a very focused research topic that also could lead to a future job for you. If we move on to the next slide, please. Now, another module that I would like to highlight, this is the environmental consultancy module. This is compulsory for the environmental pollution students, and the environmental management MSc students can choose it. And we highly recommend it because we're basically mimicking you being in an environmental consultancy team. And in fact, you will be working for an actual environmental client. So this could be an environment agency or any institute, or who wants certain questions answered. So you may be doing some field sampling if that's useful for the research that you will be doing here, and you can take your samples to the lab and analyze those. And then finally, you will, with your team, present to the client, and these real world clients will then give you very valuable and interesting feedback. So that should really serve you well for your future career. Next slide, please. Now the field class, similarly, you will be working here in teams, and this field class normally takes place in the southwest of England, in Dartmoor National Park. The field class itself is 6 days with 2 days travel, so you have 4 days in the field. And the plan is that each day you are given an assignment or a certain topic that you need to solve with your team. So then you say, well, actually, it would be good if we took some measurements and analyze that in the lab. So we will be setting up a small lab at the field site. And then you need to work through how you are going to get an answer to the problems we have posed you. So the focus would be ecosystem services, sustainable land management, contaminated land, and water quality. And you see some photos here of our students, as you can see, also a very diverse grouping from all over the world, trying to solve these problems here in very friendly and effective little groups. Next slide, please. Now, another aspect I would like to highlight here is that you can get accreditation. So your degree would be accredited by the Institution of Environmental Sciences, the IES. And that's a good thing for us because it keeps us on our toes, because it makes sure that we assure that we teach to the highest standards, and that we also build in very strong components of practical field and theoretical activities within our modules. So yes, this gives you excellent opportunities for training and work experience in the professional sector, but also it means that you then have the opportunity to apply. So once you've finished and you've graduated, you can apply for a free student membership of the IES, which then puts you on a fast track to a full membership. Next slide, please. Now, very importantly, of course, where do our students end up? And on the right here, you see some nice logos that may not mean that much to you because of course you're in the States, but I think some of these names you will recognize, such as Honeywell, but also some of these names speak for themselves, like Natural England or Thames Water, which is a water company, or the Environment Agency, for example. So lots of our students go into environmental consultancy with a focus on contaminated land, air quality, and waste management. Some of them end up in national and local governments, not just in the UK, but also, of course, in other countries, perhaps where these students came from, or they may actually move to other countries and get involved in policy and so on there. I already mentioned the water companies. Also, quite a few students end up in agricultural consultancies, or sometimes they start to work for large companies where they have an in-house role, for example, to look at sustainable management of these companies to do with waste management or environmental law, for examples. And quite a few of them also realized that research, having done their research project is good fun and could be very useful for their future career. So they carry on doing a PhD, sometimes in Reading somewhere, sometimes elsewhere. Next slide, please. So perhaps I will summarize now then. So we have really, we have two programs. As you could see, one of them is much more tailored. There's the environmental pollution, and the environmental management MSc is more flexible. As Sarah also said, and it's the same for us, we have very active student learning. So 2/3 of our contact time is in fact in the lab or in the field. And this is especially the case for the MSc environmental pollution. We build in ample of opportunities for you to network with potential employers via the microplacement, via your research project, but also we have guest lecturers. On many of our modules, we have guest lecturers who are actual practitioners, so they will really tell you hands-on what's happening in their fields. All of our coursework assessments are set up so that they really reflect the outputs that industry or any other employers want from you. So for example, policy documents or lab reports or consultancy type reports. Now we're very pleased and lucky that we have a very outstanding track records for student satisfaction. And also this year, even despite the COVID, we got some very good feedback. So 87% during our last polling, they were satisfied with the quality of our course. Now, I would also like to point out that the UK residential field class is at no extra cost to you. So that's all included within your fees. And as I said earlier, there's a very friendly, supportive and sociable community within our student cohorts. And the class sizes are generally small, so that really helps getting to know your fellow students and doing some very useful networking that will come in very handy during the rest of your life, really. So I think that is my second last slide. So then finally, my final slide. Yes, please get in contact with myself if you have any further questions, but also with my colleague, Dr. Jess Neumann, who couldn't make it today, but she leads the MSc for Environmental Management. So you see her email here. And then finally, Professor Nick Brans, who is overseeing our recruitment and admissions. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm really looking forward to hopefully welcome one of you at least, or maybe various, a number of you in Reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our speakers today. I think you've given really interesting talks and hopefully given you lots of valuable information about all the different programs that might be of interest to you as well. So if you do want to get in contact with me, so my name is Frankie Hunt. I'm the regional manager that looks after our students from North America, and you can reach me on the email address that's on this screen here. If you want to ask any more general questions about admissions and about the University of Reading, accommodation, or if you do want to get in touch with any of our speakers today and you haven't had a chance to jot their emails down, if you do send me an email, then I'm more than happy to help direct them to you. So if you do have any questions at all, of course, please feel free to unmute and ask them directly, or if you do have any questions and you'd rather pop them into the chat box, then we can answer those. And so this can be related to anything to do with study in the UK, about the University of Reading more generally, about how admissions work, or indeed about any of the courses that we've spoken about today as well. Or if you can't think of a question right now and you think you might like to ask one later, so please do note down my email. You can always send it and either I'll try and answer it or I'll direct to one of my colleagues who've spoken here today as well. So just while we're waiting to see if there are any questions that are going to pop through before people go on to whatever else that they're going to do today, I just wondered if any of our speakers today had any last bits of advice that you could give to international students who are considering a transfer to UK study.
Robbie, I'm wondering if you don't want to perhaps talk about or give a little bit of information about the field trips that you've been doing, because you just came back from being on trips with students last week.
Yeah, I can do. That's fine. Hi, my name's Robbie Girling. As Sarah mentioned in the earlier part of the talk, I'm one of the deputy directors of GIDE, but I'm also the program director for the MSc Bioresearch in Agriculture, Ecology and Environment. We, as Sarah said, we've just been on field trips. So what we, as part of one of the core modules that you do for that degree program, we have the module is on research methods and research techniques. And as part of that, we go and visit a number of different research organizations in the UK. So we've got some big multinational companies in the UK who do research and develop products in terms of agriculture. So we have one of the headquarters for Syngenta that's very, very close to us. So we quite often will go and visit Syngenta as part of that module. But we also have a number of other research organizations that we go and see within the UK. So some of you who know about UK research may have heard of Rothamsted Research. They're a big agricultural research centre that is one of the leading centres globally. They have two of the longest running agricultural field experiments in the world. So they're about 150 years old. So they've been continuously running over that period. So we go and see some of the work that they're doing, but their more recent work is much more high tech. So they're a very sort of a high tech institute as well. So we see a whole range, and we go around and see lots of different partners and people that we work with. So we have lots of collaborations between us and other research organisations in the UK. So you'll get to see those. If there's any sort of other general questions about the program, then please do ask. I'm happy to answer anything.
Yeah, this is usually the point where everybody gets very shy in asking questions. But so is there anything else that you think you'd add, Sarah, that might be useful to the students, or you, Anne, as well?
Sure. I mean, one thing that I think for my reflecting across the Anne's presentation as well, we do work a lot with one another. So for instance, I work very closely with some colleagues in Anne's school, and some of the programs that Anne has talked about work with some of our colleagues. It means that you get a lot of diverse perspectives when you're studying here. There's a lot of opportunities to look at things across the university. I know, I mean, our schools work together particularly well. We have a lot of research and teaching in common. So we tend to have a fairly multidisciplinary perspective on global issues. So if you're interested in looking at the big picture, environmental change and climate and community change and agriculture, the university we have a lot of people who are working across a lot of disciplines looking at that. And we share resources, so talks, speaking events. There'll be networks of faculty who are working in particular areas across the university, and students have the opportunity to engage with that. In campus life, I mean, when I did my two of my degrees, I did in North America, and it's much more common to have a campus university in North America. And maybe not as common in the UK. And being a campus university really creates a lovely vibe. So today we had a farmer's market on campus and street food trucks with exceptionally good jerk chicken and jerk halloumi and things. So you get a lot that is brought to us and that is available within the student community and within the university community. And I think the community feel is something that we're all we all spend a lot of time fostering. Our students talk to each other. There's a lot of different student union clubs and societies. So if you have an interest, there's probably a club or a society that'll let you meet other people who share that interest. So there's a lot of ways to get involved in student life. When I came to the UK, first I came here to do my PhD 15 years ago, and being able to meet different people who shared a lot of commonalities, even though I was far from home, was a really welcoming experience and a way to engage with both where I was and to get my feet under me as an international student. The faculty in both of our schools are a very welcoming group of people. So you can come and talk to us and talk to fellow students. So it tends to be a really positive, supportive environment. And that's what we strive to create.
Indeed.
So echoing that, Sarah, I did my undergraduate degree at Reading University. So I came back after many years of going off doing things elsewhere. So I really enjoyed being a student at Reading. It was probably one of the most enjoyable times that I've spent as in my life. I've been off and done lots of different things. In fact, after my PhD, I went and worked in the States for 2 years at the University of California, Riverside. So I've kind of been around, and then eventually came back to Reading. And I think it just really does have that. It has a real community, as Sarah says, feel. There's a collegiate nature within our school, and across the university that I haven't experienced in other institutions that I worked at. So it's an enjoyable place to be and to visit and to be a student at as well.
I'm a Reading grad as well, actually. Not in agriculture or environmental sciences, I have to say, but I studied English literature and German here at Reading. I graduated back in 2014, but then I went away and worked in kind of, well, I guess you'd say more commercial recruitment for a number of years. But similarly, I was always very keen to come back to university. My husband also works at the university, so we're quite a university pro household, but we both really enjoy working there. And it is one of those places where you do like to return back to again and again as well.
So my wife also works at the university, so she works in our department as well. So if you want more evidence of the family nature of the university, you're not going to get any better than that.
And our alumni tend to stay engaged with us and in touch. I get emails on a fairly regular basis of just students saying what they're doing next and how they're doing and offering to help. If there's a current student, I had one who was arriving from Sudan and had some questions about the weather, and one of my students from 2 years ago said, we'll give him my phone number. So, and that's not an uncommon experience. There's a lot of goodwill with our postgraduates across the university.
Definitely,
they're pretty nice people.
I've worked here now for, I think it's 22 years, and I'm still in touch with some of the MSc students I taught in my very first year, when it was all very, very new and all a bit scary, being a new lecturer. But yeah, it's a great place. So please come and study with us. It would be great to meet you and teach you.
Something else I just thought might be relevant to discuss, just while we've got a couple of minutes left, is obviously with COP26 having been going on recently, so the climate conference in Glasgow, I presume it's been on your news as much as it's been on ours over the last couple of weeks. But it occurred to me that our departments might have had a little bit of involvement in that. I know it's a lot more the meteorology department potentially, but it'd be interesting to know if you have any information that you could share about that from your departments.
I know that some of our PhD students were involved. So what they actually did phone interviews with some of the participants at the COP, and then had to do a small sort of press releases and those kind of things. So that's all I know. I don't think any of my colleagues were actually there. My background is actually in land surface modeling. Well, it's environmental physics and land surface modeling. So I actually work with the people who make these climate models that tell us about what's going to happen in the next 50 to 70 years. So, but that's my only input in the COP.
We have a lot of engagement with COP in a range of ways. So one of my PhDs works, she's successfully completed her PhD. She's working with the Walker Institute for Climate Research, and was at COP. So I was getting daily texts about what was going on, and lovely walks in the woods. There's lots of nice deer, apparently. But a lot of the research we do in the school is directly related to COP issues. So for instance, we do ecological economics and modeling. I'm just finishing a project that's been working with a colleague here who in the school who's a crop scientist, another colleague who's a geographer, and we've been looking at how to support indigenous communities in becoming more climate resilient in the Philippines. So looking at how are the communities already adapting and coping with changing environmental conditions, and then what can be done to support them and to increase their resilience, especially to extreme weather events. We've been working in a typhoon alley, so they get hit by the first typhoons of the season and tend to get some of the worst typhoon effects in the country. So we've been partnered with a Filipino university working on that. A colleague of mine, Alex Arnold, has been looking at climate-induced migration. Another colleague is working on microplastics. She just started a huge project with, I think there's about 13 different partners in 7 different countries looking at the effects of microplastics. We do work a lot with Walker on a range of projects looking at different levels of environmental change. So a lot of very community-based, but also looking at extension systems, MET systems, governments and policies around how to improve responses to climate variability, especially for vulnerable groups. And one of my colleagues, Peter Dorward, has created PICSA. It's a participatory climate systems analysis. And this is now, we keep joking because we lose track of the countries, because at the moment I can name about 16 different countries. And what they do is they train people who are working for the government and non-governmental agencies. They train people who are doing field work with farmers. So the farmers learn how to interpret climate information and plan their agricultural activities for the year. So they learn how to use weather data and a variety of different metadata that they can get access to. They learn about how to do planning for their crop systems, what kinds of crop choices they're making. And this is now, it's been embedded, for instance, the first country they started with was Malawi. And now this has been mainstreamed into the Malawian extension system. So they're using PICSA all over the place. And what that's meant is that they're also rolling it into policy. So we work a lot with policymakers who are making the decisions at COP. A lot of research is coming out of the school that will be directly influencing and some indirectly influencing the kinds of decisions being made. This is the first year nobody in my department has been at COP, because my colleague Hani Osbar, who does a lot of work, she's a geographer and she's the one running the microplastics project. She's been there for the last few years in a row. But the work that happens, and this is a consistent theme within the university, the work that we're doing tends to be out there, and in that policy space.
So from my perspective, with my other hat on, I'm head of Department of Sustainable Land Management within the school. And we have quite a few people who are working in this area. In fact, one of them I was speaking to earlier today just told me, I hadn't realized she'd been there, but she'd just come back from COP. So her work is looking at the impacts of climate change on pollinator and bird populations. And they've done a lot of work in India recently, looking at how climate change is affecting distribution of these species. So that's sort of, I think she just was feeding directly sort of research into these sort of policy discussions when she was there. But we have a lot of work looking at sort of landscape changes, and particularly agricultural landscape changes on biodiversity, and how you can change. So looking at sort of different management and the effects of different management on biodiversity, and then trying to factor in what impacts climate change will have on top of all those changes to management as well. So we come at it from across the university from lots of different angles.
Yes, I mean, I can add to that, but I think we're running out of time. So I've got various colleagues who look at hydrological extremes such as droughts and floods. People like Hannah Cloak, Sandy Harrison looks at fires, again, all to do with climate change. And so yes, very active in this area.
I think it's one of those topics that we could talk about as a university for a very long time, because we do have a particular climate and sustainability focus here at the University of Reading, and it's something that's important across all of our different departments and to the university as a whole. It's something we're always trying to look to improve on as an institution as well. But I think our time probably has come to a close now. To say thank you to all the students who have come today, who stuck with us, and to all of you who are watching this as a recording as well. Said if you do have any further questions, do please reach out to me or to any of my colleagues here, or to me, and then I'll pass you on to one of my colleagues here. But I'll probably just pass back over to the careers ambassador who's been helping us at centre, just so you can close off the session.